Important things that I want to discuss with you guys. The first is that I've had a number of questions about transformations and how to access these questions. And so what I've done here is I've reduced all of the rules down as simply as I can. And what we'll do is we'll work through one of the questions together to see where they sort of stand out, okay, to see where they are. But basically, if we've got the number out the front, these are the two rules. If we have the number as the coefficient of x, these are the two rules, all right? And all it means, right, here if we have the number out the front, if it's larger than 1, so if it's 2 or 3 or 4, we're stretching it vertically, okay? If it's between 0 and 1, so if it's a fraction or a decimal, 0.5, you're squishing it vertically, okay? Squashes it vertically. If we have b being larger than 1, we're squashing it horizontally. If b is between 0 and 1, if b is a fraction, we're stretching it horizontally. So I'm going to leave this up here, guys. You'll be able to write it down in a moment or take a photo of it, whatever. Let's move on. Don't be distracted by the words here. Listen to what I'm saying. That's going to be the important thing. Okay, we have the translations. So we're moving it to the right, moving it to the left, moving it up, moving it down. And then we have reflections, where we reflect it in the x-axis. Okay, you can think of it as flipping it over the x-axis. And here, f of minus x, flipping it over the y-axis. So let's all open the 2024 test and we'll go through one of the questions here. It's question 7, all right? And we have a graph that has Sam Kerr on it. And we have to identify which one corresponds to f of x plus 2. Okay, so part 1, circle the graph that corresponds with f of x plus 2. So we look down and we go, well, which one does it resemble? Here, f of x plus c, it moves it c units left. So we have f of x plus 2. That's the one that's moved the image 2 units to the left. So which one's it going to be? The third one, okay? That's the one that's moved Sam 2 units to the left. Does everyone follow that? Okay. The next one we have, circle the graph that corresponds to the transformation to f of x. Okay, so now the number's out the front. We have if a is larger than 1. Well, the number 2 is larger than 1. So this is what's going to happen. It's going to stretch it vertically. Okay, so then the image which the correct answer is going to be the second one, the middle one there, absolutely. And then we have f of minus x. So we make our way down, that's the very last one. This reflects it in the y-axis, all right? So what that means is we're flipping it over the y-axis. So it's the reversed image of it, but sideways. We're not flipping it upside down, we're flipping it sideways. So that's going to be the middle one as well. Okay, you can see the difference between the middle one and the top one. The Nike symbol has flipped over the y-axis, right? And the Australia logo has flipped over the y-axis. They're reversed. Can we see that? Okay, so use these rules to help you answer those questions. That's how we will present it for you. Okay, so that's probably as simple as I can write it. Any questions about that? Okay, good. So I want to make sure you get those marks. Okay, so that's why we're re-emphasising this still. The other one that's popped up is solving when lines meet. And I think the best point of access for this is in exercise 1A, the notes that we did. And we came up with the equations about Mario, who's a plumber, charging $70 per hour, and Luigi, who's a plumber, who charges $50 per hour, but plus $100. Okay, so $100 to rock up at your door, petrol money, and going out of his way and so forth, but then he only charges $50 an hour. Mario's is in direct proportion. Okay, it doesn't have a y-intercept. It passes through 0, 0. Mario's is the one that's in direct proportion. If you graph both of them, this is what you'll see, that Mario starts off very low, but it quickly gets more expensive. Here's Luigi's. It starts off high, but he has a lower slope. Okay, so they have this point of intersection here. So one question might be, solve when the lines meet. Now there are a number of ways you can do this. Okay, the first way is algebraically, which is where you just make the lines equal to one another. We go 70t equals 50t plus 100. and we're solving for t. We're trying to get the number t by itself. So we put the numbers on one side and the t's on the other. So I'm going to move this term over to the left side by taking 50t from both sides. All right, it would cancel here, so we'd be left with 100 on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side we would have 20t. 20 times t equals 100. How do I get t by itself? Divide both sides by 20. Okay? 100 divided by 20 is 5. Here we have 20 at the top, 20 at the bottom. It will cancel. So they intersect when t is 5. Okay, we can solve that algebraically. Now, what's the significance of that? Well, at 5 hours, their cost is the same. Before 5 hours, this is Mario, this is Luigi. Before 5 hours, Mario is cheaper. At 5 hours, they're the same. After 5 hours, Luigi is cheaper because his cost is lower. Okay, so that's what's going on with that kind of problem. That's how we can solve it algebraically. We can also solve it in our calculator. Okay, so one way we could solve it in our calculator is by graphing both lines. All right, I might show you this skill. Or if we can pull our calculators out, because our calculator is our friend. All right, here's the calculator. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to graph. Why didn't anyone say anything? So here's Mario's equation, 70x. Here's Luigi's equation. Look, I've even got red and green. 50x plus 100. All right, so we've got 70x, 50x plus 100. We're graphing both of those. Then we're going to restrict the V window. So we'll press Shift F3 because we're only interested in positive values of time and positive values of cost, right? So for the X min, we'll go from 0 to 10 hours. That might be 0 to 8 hours, depending how long you're going to employ the plumber for. And for the Y min and Y max, well, the minimum cost is 0. That's for Mario when time is 0. And the maximum cost, well, we're not really sure. Could be a lot of money, 500 bucks. Okay, we can keep zooming out. So if we set that as the V window and we graph it, okay, we can see these lines intersecting there. And the way we can obtain the solution on our calculator is by pressing G-solve. And then F5 corresponds with intersect. We want to know when these functions intersect, when they're equal. Look what we've got. X is 5. That's the time. Time is 5. Y is 350. That's the cost. So after 5 hours, they both cost $350. After 5 hours, Luigi is cheaper. Before 5 hours, Luigi is more expensive. He has a higher cost. Okay, so that's one way we can use our calculator to support us, all right? But try use the algebraic technique where we can. The last skill I want to talk about, unless anyone has any questions about that one, okay? If you want to practice that skill, we can redo, these questions seem to pop up a bit in the practice test, but we can redo that Mario and Luigi question. All right, next let's move on to solving asymptotes, because I want to draw out one more skill that we can use our calculator for. So for example, if we have the function 5 on x plus 3, like we have here, we know the vertical asymptote occurs when the denominator is 0. Okay, we know that you can't divide by 0, so there's going to be a vertical asymptote, all right, vertical asymptote when the denominator is 0. When x plus 3 equals 0, okay, the denominator equals 0, we solve for x, we have a vertical asymptote at minus 3. Now let's draw out how we can see that on our calculator. Okay, so if we're asked to find the vertical asymptote on our calculator,